Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is a long time coming, and a series that I've had my eyes on for quite some time, and from the incredible mind of ForestHasEyes, from over on Reddit, No Sleep. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further, and why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled I'm a security officer hired to protect an estate. The forest has eyes. Part 1. Let's get straight into that. Hi, I'm Nolan, and I've worked in this field for a long time. Well, I guess somewhat literally, but more so metaphorically. I'm sort of a private security free agent. By trade, you see. Or at least, that's the sort of title I've given myself. I'm a taller, more athletic Paul Blunt, with a chip on his shoulder, an actual gun in my holster, and instead of working for an official company, I'm just some guy that gets paid by people to guard their shit. Their more general square mile footage. I'm a city slicker. I like concrete, bright skyscrapers, and several hundreds of people within my general vicinity at all times. I've usually only accepted small jobs, short-time security, but recently, I got an interesting offer. A small-time tycoon, rich guy, looks like he's been washing his hair and liquidated money, offered me a job. Guard my plot of land, the house on said land, my son, me, all of my possessions, and get paid enough money annually to have your 401k before your hair even starts to think about turning grey. Not a bad offer, but said land was deep in southern woods. Now, you're gonna laugh. I've worked in a private security, glorified mercenary, take a gun and guard door bullshit work for a while. I've been online. I've heard enough stories. The woods are a place that you don't fuck with. Miles of dense woods drowning any person in. A place where things have dwelled for a while. Point is, if I ever gonna spend a few tons of millions on a compound, I know it's dead on the state borders. Oh well. Dropping it in Skinwalker City, woods. The air around here is so thick with pine trees, I swear, it smells like someone's trying to blot out their new car smell with a cheap air freshener. Except the smell is more genuine. You know when you feel the scent is so pungent, you can almost cut it with a knife. What if it felt like stepping out of a man's squeaky SUV in front of his estate house, as he called it? You know that one place in Argentina? The one where the weird side of the internet says Hitler hid after he fled on a wild goose chase down the Atlantic? Well, it looks similar to that. Almost identical, actually. Just give it several hundred light fixtures, shiny new windows, and a bit of a trim-up. And boom, the Casamoth Estate House. Not a lot stood out to me, or the light may be some sort of fear of the dark. Turn on all the lamps in the house. Shit we did as a kid, but on a large scale because it's surrounded by miles of woods. What did seem a bit strange to me, though, were a few things. The place had a perimeter wall. Understandable. A number of threats such as bears, wolves, hell, even the occasional freakazoid in the woods, or the bear could be a cause for alarm. What did seem strange to me was how jagged the pikes were, and the fact that they were wrapped in a whole line of razor wire and barbed wire, with light fixtures pointed outside towards the woods. A lot of money just to buy the metal for, at worst, a bear or a drugged hippie. And a lot of power spent for, what? Floodlights to see anything coming at all angles? I asked Theodore, the boy's father and my employer, and he just says it's for extra security. Fair enough. What was I going to do? Tell him he's being overly careful. I'm the kind of guy who sleeps with 5 knives in his room, and the door locked, and one eye open. Still, it wasn't the security that had me on edge. It was all the claw marks on the outside. Well, that to me were too violent to be from bears. So now that you know the details of my arrival here, Things, they've been weird. I know I said I'm a city slicker. Near what? 3 decades in Chicago, put in the middle of the woods to guard some several hundred square feet in the middle of deep south woods? Well, surely anyone would be unnerved. This place, though, the town just a few miles down the forest road, the walls of hundreds of thousands of pine trees seemingly drowning any and all life in the endless veil of the woods. I'm a man of this craft. Didn't always work in private security. I like the more combative jobs. I like working in this sort of boot and collar work, the warrior mentality. When I've had to deal with a lot of people, hundreds of kinds. Druggies, dumbasses. Do you know who I am's? Creepy motherfuckers, sitting out by the dumpster and with a boombox wearing socks. Just socks. Point is, I've experienced shit. A lot of shit. And so when the sun started to go down, the alarms in my head started to tick on. It's not bullshit. One of my jobs is to check the wall. Not too bad, honestly. Allows me to get out of the house, get some fresh air, scan the stone structure to make Eastern Berlingers, get flashbacks, and see the lights at night. Nothing too shabby. A week in, I actually had to do actual maintenance on the wall as well. Well, it was midday when I looked on the security cameras and saw the eastern side had a spot where some sort of matted fur was caught. Didn't see it the night before, so grabbed some tools and hopped on the ATV over there. When I pried it off, some alarms went off in my head. 1. This shit was a pain in the ass to pry off because it made some body armor look like cardboard. 2. If it was this tough, how the hell did it get punctured by the defensive wire? And 3. If this was animal skin, like I thought, why was the inside as dry and laminated as, say, the underside of a carpet, but still had an organic skin look to it? Theodore said it was nothing, probably just a bear passed by and some shedded fur got caught on the wire. But it's nearing wintertime, when the fur should be growing instead of shedding, and shedded fur doesn't have a layer of skin on the inside. I put it in a crate in a security room for later inspection. Do you know what's truly creepy? Sure, a reptilian humanoid bird guy, and with a Godzilla shriek running at you 1 million miles per hour. That can be scary. Do you know what's creepy? It's not the bullshit scary stories. It's not really, the movie monsters. It's the things that are out of place. I'm not an easily spooked man, but it's not the hobgoblin in the woods that freaked me out. It's the little girl out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. I was out on a full property check. I used to do this around once every week, mostly because I was unused to the whole, like I said, bumfuck miles of suffocating trees. But as I got more used to it, I started patrolling the land every 2 days. I climb on the ATV, I ride out to the gates and patrol the long, winding dirt path that the property manager agreed with whoever he'd bought it from to be his plot's perimeter. Usually I go shoot off any nicks getting drunk, clear the occasional fallen brush. However, this path runs deep into the woods. Well, I don't know how much Theodore paid for this land, but it runs miles before it loops back around again. If you ever take a walk in the woods, feel the calm silence, so tranquil, so undisturbed. But in my experience, it's like you're sitting in a canoe on a calm ocean bed, while still all it takes for you to capsize in a fairly untamed, unsafe woods is one push. One push and you're drowning in panicking and paranoia. And so when I drove up the ATV path and stopped at what I had calculated was the most northern part of Theodore's plot, I took out my binoculars and gazed around. Calm, tall grass growing and smothering the trunks of trees. And the trees, when they started passing the point of Theodore's land, they started growing more sparser. But it was still 100 per square foot. Really, this was just an excuse for me to stop, calm my nerves of the forest, and relax. What tipped me over was when I heard someone say, "Woof." And I don't mean, it's just a fucking dog twat, you dumbass. I mean, a grown fucking man literally saying, meow, woof, and bark in the middle of the fucking woods. And it was in the goddamn bright evening, and it still freaked me the fuck out. I gazed around. The noise was coming from the direction northwards, away from the property line. Hello? Woof. This shit went from cringing to just goddamn confused. You're on private property. Well, he was off property, technically. But like I was gonna tell this creepy motherfucker that. Show yourself, now! A long pause. Meow. I let out a sigh. Stop fucking around. Show yourself now. What happened next made me immediately reach for the rifle on the back of my ATV. Directly to the right of my ATV, pointing at the point I knew was directly north of the house, poked out a head. And I don't mean like a head, a hairy fucker or some pedophile or some shit. Who else fucks around in the woods like this? Regardless, what poked out was a completely blank head. You ever have those toys as kids? You fill the mold of that guy and pop him out? Imagine that, but on a much better, much more defined scale. A male head stripped of hair, eyebrows, eyelashes, fucking lips. The second it stuck out, it looked at me with what were white eyes and dilated pupils. And without even mouthing his barely open mouth went, coo, coo, coo. It caused me to nearly trip and fall on my ass from the shock. I scrambled to my feet and aimed the rifle over the ATV, using the small vehicle against cover from whatever the fuck this was. Come out, now! Nay. In retrospect, I now can guess he was making a horse's neigh, but I thought he was saying nay in defiance. So I stood up and screamed, Come the fuck out, or I will fire! Yes, I was that trigger-happy security officer that those thrill-seeking teens ran into when they pushed the buttons of a rent-a-cop on duty. You can thank Iraq for that mentality. What I cannot thank Iraq for was preparing me for what the man did next. The guy crab-walked. I mean more shuffled onward sideways. You know in 2D cartoons, how they draw the crabs? Well, he was like that. Legs apart wide, hands up like fucking claws. That god-awful face staring at me. He was also fucking naked. All I could do was let out a, what the fuck? I'm not gonna lie, I was in disbelief. Oink. He then turned 90 degrees north and fucking shuffled a goddamn 50 miles per hour away. After a few meters, he disappeared into the thick brush. What the fuck? I've heard him, but never seen him since, and something told me Theodore. Brushing it off didn't put my mind at ease, either. I started to get over seeing the random lights, the naked man, and the growing claw marks on the wall. Got used to it, I guess. Then, well, I met Tim a few nights ago. And so one night, I was sitting in the security room. Essentially, the outside-facing wall is, well, a wall of monitors. There's nothing much in the room. A table with a computer, mouse and keyboard attached to the screens. The crate where I stuffed the fur, along with any other things the Cryptid Amazon users would buy up for $300, minimum, and the chair. It gets pretty boring, actually. Log walls aren't furnished with a layer of plywood and plaster like the rest of the place, which gives off this piney smell and makes it strangely quiet. What broke the silence a few days ago was when I took a break from scanning empty monitors to listen to browse on my phone. Hey! The voice echoed through the sound of the speakers, caused the jump a bit too, dead of the night, and went right from dead silence. I quickly scanned the monitors, trying to find the source. Hey! Nothing at the backside, nothing in the main yard. Hey! The voice sounded like it was halfway to crackling, and then decided to do what I should have done instead of my frantic screen searching. I checked the sound receivers and saw it was coming from a voice receiver at the front gate. Hey! Hey! My eyes darted to the camera overlooking the front gate to see some kind of white figure, and with a metal pole. It wasn't too good of a look, so I switched it to the front gate cam, and what I saw left me in surprise. Not shocked, just baffled. A science room skeleton. Yes, a A science room skeleton. The metal pole was actually the wheeled rack it was hanging off of. I sat there, surprised. I expected to see a serial killer. Hell, seeing the white figure from a distance made my mind go into emergency mode from reading off too many Native American horror stories. But this... "Hey!" The voice called from the skeleton, or at least I thought it was. It was coming from the receiver, so it could have very well have been just a decoy, and someone underneath it was yelling into it. I clicked on the speaker and called back. "You're on private property." A long silence followed, broke up by a "Hey! Hey! Hey! Hey!" A dead, unmoving stare from the skeleton as it happened. What the fuck is this? "Hey!" Well, someone was trying to draw attention to the front gate. I signed and grabbed my rifle, but considering it would also be a close distance, I grabbed the Beretta from the locker under the table as well. I passed John, Theodore's son, as I passed him by and went for the front door. "John, head upstairs. Lock yourself in your room." He sighed, turning his attention from playing some sort of game on his Xbox. "Why?" "There's some guy at the front gate. Could be a perimeter breach attempt. No other signs of life except the front gate." John paused for a moment as I unlocked the door. His question caused me to pause. "Is it a skeleton?" I stopped, locked eyes with the 16-year-old. A second of silence passed as a "Hey!" escaped through the slight crack of the door. Possibly. That's just Tim. I blinked at the response, shaking my head slightly. Tim? Yeah, skeleton. Appears and just yells at the gate. Well, Dad just tells me to ignore him and turn up the volume. Well, that's highly unsafe. John just simply looked confused, silent. Why? There's a man out there screaming at the gate, causing an obvious distraction. Your Dad just lets it fly. Well, it's not a person. It's a skeleton. Dad says to ignore the things that come around during the night. It's at this point I realize the parlor and all the windows to the ground level rooms that were too big for simple blinds were above eye level. Easier to avoid seeing things at night. Well, I'm going to go talk to... Don't! This made me stop at the door, because, well, the kid said the single word a lot sterner than I had any adult speak to me in the past. What, 8 years? Why, that's how we lost Richie. For reference, they told me Richie was a Rottweiler they had a few years back. It went missing. The father chummed it up to him running off after a bear. Guy was at that gate and Dad sicked him on him. I feel I knew the obvious truth, but I wasn't in the mood to hear the rest. And shaking my head, I headed out. I pressed the remote control for the gate and I clipped on my belt and had it open. I took a firing position from the porch and watched as the reinforced sheets of steel and mechanics slowly wheeled open. A part of me thanks Theodore for all of the lights. The woods out here are an impermeable wall of pitch black, suffocatingly so. And so bright, it illuminated Tim even brighter than he was. But as soon as I saw him, one of those alarms went off in my head. You see, the gates wheeled open. I remembered something. Tim was positioned just in front of the receiver, although a few meters from it. Point is, he was off to the right of the driveway, and so when the gates opened up down the middle, the pitch-black walls of trees showing themselves, there it was, dead center, in the middle of the gravel path. Hey! Tim cut off mid-sentence, when it opened wide enough for both of us to get a good look at each other. If it was a burglary distraction, it wouldn't have been long enough, and an alarm would have been tripped if a sneak entry was tried. All I saw was me aiming at what was a fucking science class skeleton in the middle of the goddamn woods. Fuck me. I cut the pie at the gates, meaning I first vaulted over the porch edge and checked slowly on the right side to see if someone was hiding. Nothing. I checked the left side, keeping far enough to where they'd have a few meters to run at me. Nothing. I stopped, my rifle barrel lowered, but still shouldered. Now here's the thing. The floodlights are so bright, If someone tried to hide, you'd be able to see them. Problem was, there was no one. And sitting there, staring off to the left side when Tim started up again. Hey! I sighed. What in the ever-loving fuck is going on? Hey! Hey! I walked towards the gate, peeking around the corner of the wall and stared out at him. Tim. At this point, I did scans to the left and the right side. No one. Nothing. Fucking zip. Just me and a goddamn skeleton. The quickly cooling night air allowed me to see my breath. And I quickly gazed around, trying to see where the moon was, near midnight. Knock! I spun around and backed up a few paces. Did the skeleton just call me a knock? I lowered my barrel when I realized I was aiming at a fucking skeleton, but in retrospect, I shouldn't be so careful. I gazed at the thing for a few moments. Gazing at it, I decided to say fuck it, and went up to him. It was indeed a skeleton, a bare one at that. No wires, no cameras, no voice speakers, nothing. I thought it might be built into the stand, but the pipe seemed to be hollow. It didn't sound like it was coming from a metal pipe. And I backed up from Tim, once again asking myself confidently, what the actual fuck? Strangely, I expected this to be the point where something jumped out, scared me and forced a hasty retreat into the compound. Sorry, the state's walls. But nothing. Not a shadow out of the dark wall. Not a pale, white, crab-walking, back-flipping, deformed man. Not a goddamn thing. Hey, knock! Nice scar! I turned my head back to Tim and then backed up a few steps more. I was staring leftwards before he said that. On the right side of my face is a scar. A long gash, although not too noticeable if you're close. You'd have to be close if you didn't know it was already there. And Tim was around the distance you'd need to be. Well, there were no cameras on it. How could anyone see? No speakers, so no way someone could be speaking through it. And yet it just gave me a compliment about a facial mutilation. What the fuck did you just say? I asked, sounding unintentionally offended. It was really more out of stunned confusion. The skeleton did not answer. Whatever was going on, whoever was doing this, I was fucking with me. And so I parted ways with Tim, with a nice crack to the skeleton's jaw, courtesy of my rifle stock, and walked back in, hitting the button as the gate slowly closed. Now, between the sound of the gates closing and the engines forcing them to slide out, I heard one parting message from Tim. Asshole! I went back out the next day. Tim was gone. Still don't believe a skeleton talked to me yesterday. Seemed so fucking stupid in retrospect. And yet, matched the atmosphere in a strange way. Now, it's been a few weeks. That's some of the shit that I've encountered. There's been a lot going on, and I decided to do what everyone encountering paranormal elements with too much excess time has. Document it online. Or, well, blog it, I guess. And post. Getting off track. Point is, I got plenty of things to tell. And so, when I get back to this shitty laptop, you'll be the first to hear. I'm a security guard hired to protect an estate. The forests have eyes. Part 2. Let's get straight into that. It's Nolan, your security guard friend from the woods. A lot happened. It's the reason I'm so busy for what seemed to be the entire damn week. But even today, we're sorting out some things. And so for that reason, I'm going to try and get through this. But it will be in 2 parts. You might ask what happened or why we're busy. But just trust me, when I say by tomorrow, it should be cleared up. And you'll get the full picture of this. So, some notes though. Again, thank you for the feedback. Well, it's been helpful, and it's given some insight to me over the past week. Before I get to hashing out the events, let me take some time real quick to answer back. In regards to using fire, torches, incendiary/dragon breath rounds, after recent events, which you'll find out, is definitely an option I'll explore. Thank you. But some were curious about the crab-walking slender animal man. While, as I said, I haven't seen him since then, which has been a week or so ago, I decided to look up the account that was posted by a search and rescue officer. It's stunning, really. There's not a national park around here for tens of miles, probably more. They seemed to me similar, albeit the figure I saw had somewhat of a face, and said one did not when described. We'll keep this noted. Thank you. Due to the nature of the estate and the contract I've signed, I cannot give out the location of the compound and the surrounding area, even if it's been a fun time with him knowing more than he tells me. But for the sake of clarity, I don't think some vague description of where this is at is all that bad. The heavy woodland area, the compound, and the town are based in the general southeast quarter of Missouri. And that's all that I can tell. Now that's all clear, let's recall, unarguably, the most eventful near week of my life. So, you might remember Tim. Well, so did I. Theodore gave me another of a brushed off excuses. Halloween decoration. Insomnia. He knows more than he's letting on. I mean, he totally fucking does, right? Well then why lie? You want me to protect your house? Then why not tell me what's really out there? Well, not just out there. You see, the morning I woke up, it was around 6, due to how my body's wired, and my schedule. I sleep a healthy 5 hours in the security room, so I can be awoken in case of an alarm. Point is, I wake up, house is dead fucking silent, and I'm going to get myself an energy drink. No, I don't drink coffee. I never bother to spend a week wasting batches to find the right blend. I'm rambling again, sorry. Point is, the house is dead quiet, not unreasonable nor unexpected. What was unexpected was the fucking cold. You see, the house has one of those old chimney heater systems, a water boiler, but most of the shit Theodore has installed is mostly state-of-the-art electronic shit. Pretty power costly too, but it allows the place to keep up room temperature 24/7. Which is why I woke up and thought it was fucking odd that it was 51 goddamn degrees. Outage? Well, it shouldn't be. All of the electronics are still working fine. I even checked the security systems to see no dippage happened. Malfunction? Could be, but if the electric goes, apparently the old heater and boiler are set up to take over. Point is, when I headed downstairs, head still waking up even 20 minutes after, I was a little more than cautious when I brought my Beretta with me. Some info about the basement real quick. The main portion is a rectangle room, with a staircase splitting it down the middle. And to the left when you come down, storage to the right, the heaters, boilers, and other machinery. I turned on the lights, came down, and noticed something. It was all off. Everything. Boiler pilot light, furnace, as long cold. And the electric generator connected to the heater was dead still. Not a breeze, not a drop of water. It creeped me the fuck out. It wasn't like it was gonna fix itself. But the second I knelt down and started trying to spark the boiler back on, I felt off. The entire basement went from feeling secure to feeling like I was in enemy territory. I didn't just feel watched, I felt hated. I felt fucking despised. So much so, I even had to look up and back to see if there was some naked fucking crab walking down here. Nothing. The boiler sparked back on, and I pulled the handle up as it started up. One down, and then I sighed. Fucking furnace's wood was... Oh, that's odd. I remember coming down here and checking last night. Put in some fresh logs just in case. Well, they weren't gone. They were charred and completely stamped out. Even if they needed to start on in the 5 or so hours of possible outage, They shouldn't be this dead and cold. And that's when I saw something that made me draw my pistol back against the concrete wall. It happened when my head gazed slightly to the right, and in my peripheral I saw a pair of legs. When I was back to the wall, ready to fight off whatever the fuck, nothing. I know what you're gonna say. It's a ghost, dickhead. Get the fuck out. But keep in mind, I was fucking tired and I remember it being as grey as the concrete walls around. So I had myself the benefit of doubt and tossed in some logs. Besides, if I keep drawing my pistol like Rambo, it's only a matter of time I accidentally shoot Theodore or John. And finally, the goddamn electric generator. It's not like one of the shitty gas-operated ones you get at Kmart, Plus for anyone who still remembers those, for like $12.50. It was at least 5x8. The damn thing had a touchpad, a direct fucking cable underground to the grid, and most importantly, a security lock. Code only I and Theodore knew. So, it couldn't have been John. It couldn't have been some fucker who'd broke in, let alone without tripping any alarms, to just turn off the damn heat and clean water. It felt like I was still being watched. I kept gazing around, and no one was there. Not just paranoia. In the woods, despite some entertaining tenants inhabiting them, I knew when I was alone and when I was being watched. And right now, it felt like a bear wanted to tear out my ass. Regardless, I needed to figure out what happened with the generator. Luckily, the security room had more than just camera angles. The generator being hooked up to the grid and run on the network of the house means it's sort of like your iPhone. Every time the touchpad is accessed to have the code put in, it leaves a file. For example, app, lock screen, info, swipe, time, down to the fucking second. I open the access log for the generator. Now the time is listed as 3:17 a.m. Around an hour and 40 after I got some shut-eye. Someone had accessed the pad and typed in the correct code on a third try. Only Theodore and I knew the code. I knew it wasn't me. I was fast asleep in a locked security room. And Theodore, I don't think, had time to turn off the water and heat utilities of his building for a quick laugh. So, whatever accessed the pad did so after multiple tries. Theodore. Good morning, Dwight. Tim visit you in your dreams? He jested. God, no. Thankfully. Theodore, the heating went off last night. And the boiler, and the furnace. All of it? Was it an outage? No. Everything shows not a damn second went by where the main electric was shut down. Just the side generator downstairs controlling, well, clean water and heat. He pondered for a moment. Should be noted, not a moment goes by where Theodore never looks well. I'm positive. Always got the same sort of smirk Steve Jobs had while ordering Malaysian children to make his iPhones. Maybe it was just a malfunction. Well, it couldn't be. Someone or something accessed the touchpad and deactivated it. I took a few tries too. It wasn't John. He's a good kid. Also, he doesn't know the passcode. And I'm sure he doesn't want to be sleeping in the ice-cold air of the forest. Well, he paused before snapping his fingers. Try the camera on the generator. And I looked confused. The generator has a camera? It's like an iPhone. I told you guys. Every time someone accesses it, it snaps a HD photo. Does this guy just lace everything with cameras? Am I flushing the toilets and having a handle take selfies of my ass every other hour? Still, thankfully convenient. I was going to have a look at it later, but for now, I still had shit to do. First thing, check the perimeter. The wall seemed to be intact, thankfully confirming my suspicions. We weren't besieged by Tim and his skeletal army last night. The gate showed it was closed ever since I had it stay shut, and finally the barbed wire. But, well, that's where it got odd. A portion of the barbed wire was noticeably missing. I knew it was, even though there was razor wire and several feet of barbed wire. It was gone, missing. Moreover, when I went out, rifle in hand to check, 2 of the floodlights were out as well. Oh, this is bad. An alarm should have been tripped when these 2 went off, and if something got that close and ripped off the fucking wire. I rushed back to the security room with a reasonable amount of paranoia. Fucking skeleton. God damn it. I knew it was a fucking distraction. I knew it. I slipped right into my chair and checked the footage. Initially, I thought nothing wrong. Like I said, no motion detectors or alarms had went off. Hell, guess I was wrong about Tim. The left side cameras showed nothing wrong during my whole interrogation of the science room prop. But then, at 3:25 a.m., one of the floodlights flickered and went off. Then the adjacent one to its left, and then its right. A 5-foot wide segment of the wall, done, gone. Just like that, all the bullshit tech went out the window, apparently. And I say that because the motion detectors were still on, and they didn't pick up what happened next. From the light still beaming from within the house, you could barely see through the gap in the light. Remember when I said the darkness was, well, drowning, suffocating? I wasn't kidding. No city light, no suburban light. Went from a dimming spot as the light went off to a pitch black strip. Could barely even see the top of the wall above the broken floodlights. And when I did, for context, when a body becomes bloated in water, its skin looks incredibly soaked. Its flesh looks mushy. That's the kind of flesh I saw. A sickly, grey or silver hand, fingernails not black. I recognized the wounds, vessels broken, and the underside of the nails bloody. The thing reached over and plucked the barbed wire off. Literally. Shit plucked off, and before I knew it, the other end of the God knows how long segment of barbed wire simply snapped off. Not a goddamn thing after that. Just blank footage showing the dark area slowly light up as the sun rose. What the fuck? Not only did this shit just bypass all the alarms, it couldn't have just waltzed in here. This happened when I was out cold, asleep. Oh, this was bad. Criminally fucking bad. Absolutely, catastrophically fucked. We need to get the fuck out of here. A malfunction happened. Sometimes, due to all the power, some of the bulbs aren't prepared and just zap out. Just get some of the extra strength ones and replace the... A fucking hand reached out. Some ghoulish motherfucker just walked right up to your billion-dollar compound and ripped off barbed wire used on military compounds like it was fucking nothing. You're overreacting, Dwight. You're underreacting. It wasn't fear that drove me. I knew we were safe for now. Whatever it was, lied to keep it to nightfall, but we needed to get the fuck out of this place. Dwight. The middle-aged man took off his glasses, brushing back his black but slowly greying hair as he looked at me. What do I pay you for? Ha this fucker. Security, I gruffed. Well, obviously, this is a security situation. I paid you a pretty handsome upfront sum to come out here and protect this place. And you've done your job well so far. But it seems to me like this little malfunction is a security situation. Take care of it. I contemplated calling a cab and flying back to Chicago right there and then. Right then, right fucking there. However, whatever was out there was just prodding defenses, testing morale, trying to see just what the fuck we were made of, what I was made of. A wiser man would have went back to civilization, bought a room at a motel, and called settling out in the woods to be a fucking mistake, while I might not be a wiser man. I'm sure as shit a bold one. Brighter balls were going to be the trick. Fine. Spent the better part of a few hours unscrewing, replacing, and rescrewing the floodlights. All 48 of them. But let's just say I spent a day rewiring the walls and assessing the integrity of the motion trackers. And when night came, I sat in a security room, eyes glued to the monitor, waiting. Just fucking waiting for something to happen. 9 goddamn hours of darkness. 6 goddamn magazines loaded with hollow point rounds for my rifle. Not a single fucking movement from outside for 2 whole nights. Whatever it was, it did its job, and fought in my head the first time. I made a mental note. The second time, it wouldn't be so prudent. Regardless, I couldn't sit in the compound forever. I still had a job to do. The storm was going to be rolling in the next few days. A small one, less regionally and more statewide, but it was still going to be a downpour. And that meant ensuring no one was fucking about on the trail or property space. I've already seen this fucking place in the daytime. It was goddamn weird. Imagine being stuck on a monsoon with the fuckers. It was less being a dick to campus and more doing people a favour. It felt good to be back on the ATV though. Wind in my face, sun in the sky. Whether it was the courage of knowing I had a healthy bit of firepower on my back or just knowing whatever this shit was, it wasn't brave enough to fuck with anyone in the daytime. It felt good to zip down the trail. And to be fair, you patrol enough, you tend to learn some landmarks, even in the forest. Helps to not get lost. A giant oak, a short cliff, a set of trees dominoing onto each other, large rock pointing upwards, fox den, Native American, eagles. Wait. I slammed on my fucking brakes just as my ATV came over a small ramp. It flew for a second before slamming onto the ground and braking hard. I looked back and gazed at the spot where I passed him. Tan guy, with sort of a bracelet of what I'm going to guess were talons, and war paint across his eyes. Head was shaved except for a mohawk and eagle feathers. I remember him clear as fucking day. Because my mind got a good sip of him before I realized. The native around this part were moved to Oklahoma a few hundred years ago. When I looked back, nothing. Nothing except for a smoke pillar in the short distance, right behind where the guy should have been. Son of a... I took my rifle out, worked the bolt, and read it around. Not this time. Fuck that. Crept through the grass. And right around a large rock formation was a small smoke pillar. It was to the right of the trail, and while it was not technically on property, it was also ordered by the local government down the road for all campers to get the fuck out the woods before the rain hit. I walked around the bend, keeping a crouched stance, and saw a campsite. Who in the actual fuck is camping out here? And what in the actual fuck would be camping out here? I approached the campsite. Didn't have much. A tent, cooking pot, bag hanging to keep away the bears. Except there were no bears around these parts. I approached the tent and looked inside the flap. A sleeping bag with someone in it. Hey, I gave him my best cop voice. The bag shifted, but no answer. Excuse me. There was some muttering, probably from a male, and the person inside the bag adjusted. I sighed, grabbed the top part of the sleeping bag and pulled it open. The person jolted, and I could see a man, young, tannish, hunter-looking guy, and with a full beard, possibly mid-30s. What? Oh, hey, he said, enthusiastically at the last part. He bolted upright, or more as upright as you can be in a tent, and I kept my gun shouldered, but kept the barrel low. You're on private property, sir. I've been saying that a lot now. No one seems to get the memo. Wait, you're not... People live here? Yes. Oh, thank God! He quickly pulled up his pants and then realized I was talking to a half-naked guy before he started to clean and pack his things at an almost inhuman speed. Been out here for a while. You should see the place. Beautiful, scenic. He zipped up his bag, and it's then I realized he started to already get his tent packed up, but also dangerous. And I gazed around. Yeah, I'm aware. It's then the man shoved his tent into his bag and started to tie it to the side of his main pack. So, stranger, live near here? Their town, civilization. You got any food? Yeah, just down the road, a few miles. Oh, thank God. Been out here for what felt like months. Yeah, camping will do. Wait, months? Well, probably just weeks. Time passes. Say, you got the date? Out here? I pointed to the ground. Yeah. Noticeably, strangely not southern more. Mixed Bostonian with trucker accent. How? I asked, genuinely intrigued. Like, you know what's out. Haha, yeah. Pretty fucked up, to be honest. Say, you seen two naked guys leapfrogging over each other? My stunned silence was more than enough of an answer for him. Yeah, kinda weird. I know it's summer and it's warm, but really isn't the environment to be going full nudist. Look, you really need to get the fuck out of these woods. Ha ha ha, he laughed. You telling me? Say, can I head back to your house? No, it's private property. Ah, come on, man. Been stuck out here with shit that makes me want to hug a bear at night for the last week or so. I rubbed my temples. Look, just head left back up the trail. When you reach the gravel road, you're near the main road, and turn right to get to town. Well, he let out an inexplicably long sigh. Ah, fine. Well, it's then I realized he had his entire camp already packed up as he headed out. Before he went, I stopped him. Wait. He turned. How did you survive the night in a measly tent? Well, he scratched his head and shrugged. I don't know. Guys out here probably have a bigger target. As he left down the trail, a pit formed in my gut. Bigger target? No time to think. Can't get freaked out. Not now, at least. Not enough time. Nor the place. I drove down the trail further, and sadly Animal Man wasn't there. But something did catch my eye. I hit the brakes on my ATV, coming to a stop on the straightaway. I was going down the left side of the property line. The western side from here, there was a slight cliff line to where you could see over some of the trees. Sadly, I couldn't stop to see the signs. It wasn't the plant life that caught my eye. It wasn't the endless greenery. It was the red and yellow cap dead center of the trail that stopped me. Now, even this deep in the woods, which are apparently taboo to the point of no real campers, you still find trash. Litter. Hell, I found a fucking Mr. Pibb bottle, and they stopped selling the original years ago. But I never once in the 4 or so weeks I've been here seen clothing. Especially mint condition clothing. I mean, this was deep in the woods, and surely whoever dropped it wouldn't have got some dirt on them. But no. I stepped off the ATV, rifle now in its sling, and couldn't take any risks anymore. I picked it up. It was small. I checked the size when I felt some dread wash over me. Kids. Small. The fuck was a kid doing out here? I looked for any sort of name tag next. Hey! Nearly jumped out of my own fucking skin as I drew my pistol and aimed for what was behind me. And then I fucking sighed. Ugh, that fucking skeleton. I'm a security guard hired to protect an estate. The forest has eyes. Part 3. Let's get straight into that. Fucking skeleton. Of all the people to see out here at this time, that stupid bastard made me nearly jump out of my skin. But likewise, if he wanted to get the jump on me, he could have very well have just grabbed the rock. I mean, he wasn't there before, and here he was. No noise, and out the blue. Hey, Tim, I said, going back to inspect the hat. Knock! I still didn't know who was initiating this puppet, still refused to believe it was a living fucking object. But he obviously wasn't hostile, and so I decided to play along. I held up the hat by the visor. You know what this is, Tim? Silence. What? Was this some, don't look at me and we talk kind of bull? I inspected the hat further and found something written on the back. Omen, knock! I gazed up at an eggshell-coloured friend. What? Omen? I looked back into the hat to see what I was looking at. On the inside of the back, written in permanent marker, Danny. Then I showed the back to Tim. You know Danny, by chance? Once again I was met with stone silence. Brilliant. I found an ominous omen of a child's hat with a name, and yet the only person I can ask right now is playing peekaboo 20 questions. Fucking perfect. No signs of life. Hair. Nothing. Almost like him! My face shut up to meet Tim's. Grassman! Grassman, forgetting how he finally directly spoke to me. What was Grassman? No leaves on the hat as I looked, and there was grass everywhere, literally. Well, it's a forest. But none on the hat, not a drop of filth at all. Well, who's Grassman? Tim once again answered with silence. Oh, great. Back to tiddlywinks. Fuck this. Placed the hat in my pocket of my coat and hopped on the ATV. Hey, thanks, Tim. I turned back to the skeleton, and despite me now thinking my sanity was slipping, I said, I'm sorry for cracking you on the skull. And I stopped. That's funny, 'cause you're a skeleton. I looked back again, and Tim was gone. Of course. Well, the drive back was quiet, thank God. Between something always poking its creepy fucking head around a tree and sneaking up, and having some peace and quiet, I was good. Well, that was until I reached the front gate. Look, man, I can't let you in. Wait till Dwight gets back and I'll help you. Wait till who? Look, there's goddamn ghouls out here, man. Let me in. The same guy before, talking to John through the intercom's voice receiver. His Bostonian accent was more apparent when he yelled. Just wait. Oh, here's Dwight now. I parked the ATV center of the driveway in front of the gate, and the man turned. He snapped his fingers, trying to find my name, although I never told him. Dwight. Dwight! That's it! Sure it is. I thought I told you to head down the road. Oh, come on, man. It's getting dark and it's fucking spooky out here. Can I stay the night? My neck looked red. Are you actually kidding me? The guy's face didn't read any real danger. When you work the job as long as I have, you can read a person's face. He was just short of me. Probably 5'10"ish. Looked like a Minnesota trucker decided to go play Spetsnaz, but seemed genuine. And finally, I agreed with a sigh. I'll talk to my boss. You can stay for the night, but you're to stay in sight of me at all times. The guy sighed with relief, and this is when I could read the genuineness in his relief, just eliminating any doubts about him. Finally got the time to sit down and talk with him. His name's Isaac. He was a truck driver. I knew it. I lived in a New England area. Knew it. And had his truck break down in fucking Texas, out for a long haul. I decided to take up camping a few miles away while it was getting fixed. Turns out he'd been bumping around 3 states worth of forest before he'd found me. Texas? I asked in disbelief, swiveling slightly on the security room's computer chair. Yep, he said, sitting in a corner where he'd set up his goddamn tent. Indoors. I won't judge. Gives us both privacy. I know what you're bound to say, or ask or warn me. He's a shape-shifting witch doctor that you literally found in the woods and just said, yeah, sure, come on in. And while the latter might be right, I don't know whether it's his almost transparent demeanor or the fact that he could have stabbed me 17 times that I've turned my back to him. 2 of which, while I've been writing these, I buries my doubts, at least for now, to discuss later. What isn't for later is what came the following day. Isaac had done some pirate radio type stuff, surprisingly showing me how to set the cameras on a swivel mode, set up the radios on a covert frequency, and as the head of security and sole member of the Casmoth State Security Force, I made the executive decision to let him pay off his stay with work. And things were going smoothly, until me and Isaac were sitting in the living room. Storm was hitting hard outside, so we let the security do the work and decided to bug out for the night. We turned on basic cable, and both of us were watching the end credits to a movie roll. "God, that movie sucked," Isaac said, sitting back to the point where he was laying on the entirety of the couch. When I said, "Make yourself at home," he took it literally. "We gotta stop watching C-list movies on Netflix. Not a goddamn director on there that knows how to make a..." Just then, a large flurry of rain hit the windows above the living room walls, in between the already hard rainfall. Could put out the camera now, and we made the best found footage shot on the damn app. I laughed. Funny because, well, it was true. You might be asking, why are you telling us this? It's because things went from 0 to 60,000 as our laughter was cut off when John came walking, more running, into the living room. "Dwight, someone's calling for help." I bolted upright, as did Isaac. "What?" "A kid on the radio." For reference, what he's talking about is one of the motion trackers. While primarily there, around the wall, we place them periodically throughout the trail. How it works is, when one of them senses someone or thing in the area, it records the footsteps in a sort of circle and records the sound for reference. Through the rainfall, we could hear the sounds of a child crying, screaming, "Help!" To what we can gather, no one in particular. It was tracker number 6, the most northern tracker near the northern arch of the trail. "You're not actually going to go up there?" Isaac asked futilely as I zipped up the waterproof overcoat. "That kid's out there." "Oh, come the fuck on." I zipped up the coat, and 2 black trench coat flaps helped shield my pant legs and back pockets, and he met me face to face. "You've seen what's out there, but I've seen a whole lot more. The things out there, especially in this part, where they will lure you, imitate whatever. I've heard that kid's voice out there 6 times a fucking week, right outside my tent flap. You're walking into a trap." I found that damn kid's hat today. I looked him dead in the eyes before chambering around in a Winchester and clipping on the belt I had with a load of magazines. You may have heard something else, but my gut tells me there's a good chance he's out there. "What if it's not a damn kid? What if it's a..." "You gonna be the one to tell his mother?" "What do you mean? What's out there?" And we both noticed John by the doorway. The kid was smart, good head on his shoulders. But God, if I hadn't seen that look on his face. Pure fucking confusion. Same look I had while patrolling night 1. And Isaac sighed. "Are you telling me this kid's lived in the haunted woods for God knows how long and he doesn't even know what..." "Isaac," and the trucker quieted down before clearing his throat. "We'll tell you later, kid." I looked John dead in the eye. "Your dad will tell you, Isaac. On the radio." And I grabbed the small radio clipped to my utility vest. "Testing, testing." And the voice came through the headset. "Testing, testing." The kid's continued cries for help sent a shiver down my spine. Looking out into the rainy, pitch-black night, sitting on that ATV, rifle in sling, the only light being from the damn glorified moped that I was on, made the pit in my stomach grow. But then it sank. And maybe it was knowing there was a kid out here. Maybe it was, as I say, the 308 strapped to my back. Maybe it was knowing I was half a mile driving down a dirty path, the ATV half battled in the dirt and mud for supremacy. My mind needed to be a shield right now. It needed to be forged out of solid iron. But the giggling in the forest and the flashing shadows didn't help. Dwight, come in!" Isaac's voice bellowed from the radio. Dangerously I pried my left hand from the handlebars, having been gripping it. "I'm here, Isaac. Nearing the bend now." "Dwight, the kid... gone. Quiet. Yeah, you get... I still don't know, even after inspecting it, if it was the water, mud or something else that made the radio go dead. But before I knew it, my hand was right back on the handlebar as the front tires came to a halt, nearly knocking me off the front. "What the fuck?" I asked, ATV still on, and tried to reverse. The back tires tried and the front tires did, but stopped. They were snagging on something. I looked, and dread fully overtook me. A line of barbed wire stretched across the muddy path, and both front tires were completely snagged, and after trying to reverse, now tangled in it. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Fuck. Fuck! I tried to reverse to no avail. I gazed at the barbed wire, trying to see how long it was and where was the end. The end led off the road, and I saw it. It was tied against two opposing trees. Fuck! That was a goddamn setup. I should have listened to Isaac. I should have listened to the feeling in my gut, underneath all that sense of bravery and child rescue shit. I unstrapped the rifle and sat half-mount on an ATV and listened. And through the rain, God, it still sends shivers up my spine. The giggling, the voices. You know what they say. Inhuman. You don't know until you know. Until you've heard. A low pitch, too low to be human. Whispering, laughing. I wipe the rain out of my eyes and trying to get a good look, and I see yellow ahead. Yellow and red. It's the kid, is it? Well, it looks like him. The back of the coat, the red pant leg, just barely out of range of my ATV's lights. "Danny!" I yelled, top of my lungs, trying to get the kid's attention. And then, meters above what the child's height should be, I see a pair of eyes, in a color I can't even describe. Looking back. The kid? No. The decoy had disappeared, and I was left with the voices growing and the eyes gazing. Motherfucker! I yelled at it and fired off a shot between the eyes. The HP round went soaring through the air, as dark as oil. You could see the hot round go soaring, and finally hit it as it disappeared into the pitch black between its eyes. It moved like something just got punted with a rock, but it didn't move. More so shifted back, and after a light shove, it continued to look. I worked the bolt, the casing falling out and hissing in the cold rain, and fired again. The shot went flying, but again, whatever it was, maybe its flesh was too thick. Maybe. I didn't have time to think, because the storm finally decided to crack lightning near us. God, I wish it hadn't, because I got a good look at what I was shooting at. Something no man, woman or child, fucking anyone, was meant to see. And it turns out I was correct about my surveillance when I said the flesh looked bloated, the nails darkened from broken vessels, the black rings, the milky white eyes with dilated pupils. I don't remember much else from the one I shot at. I was too fixated on the dozens behind it. Now, I've been deployed. I've wore high-tech body armor and carried an M4. I know this setup. The kind meant to stop a convoy. It's meant for a target. Oh, it's a fucking ambush. I don't care if you call me a wuss security guard. I don't care if you think I'm a coward. I grabbed the ATV keys and I fucking ran. I booked it. I unholstered my pistol and I made Usain fucking Bolt look out of shape. And the sounds. Fuck, the sounds. I could tell they were all around. Thankfully, I knew the path. I knew where I was going. But they were following me, toying. The snapping branches to my right, the low-pitched deep giggles that sounded like they were right next to my face. I had to run. I was in freefall, out in the open and exposed. Fuck! Why didn't I listen to? And then the figure dead in front of me jumped out, trying to surprise me, just 5 meters ahead. There was no time for an accurate rifle shot, no time to even unsling it. Primal instinct took over. Flight couldn't get through, so fight did. And I laid what I counted now 9 rounds into that thing. It was smaller than the ones back there, much smaller. And after it jolted from the majority of a 9mm cartridge, I threw my shoulder into it and pushed past it. The way the skin looked made you underestimate the density, and my shoulder ached. Felt like I just tried to ram a fucking tree. But whether it was my shove or all of the rounds, it stumbled off the path, and I kept running, half wobbling as I hadn't caught my footing. I tried to round the bend, but failed. I fucking failed. Tripped and fell over a goddamn branch that had fallen from the rain. I tried to brace, grab my rifle, but it just fell on top of it. Then a round shot out and hit a tree to my left, causing the bark to explode off its surface. My brain was yelling at me. Funny what adrenaline and a human flight mode can do when working together. I blinked. Mud blinded me. My muscles and lungs started to ache as I had stopped. I needed to get moving, but the shit in my vision stung. I blinked, and light was coming from somewhere, but I didn't know where. I tried to blink, my right eye free, and I saw him. The man from before, the Native American, looked just like before, looking at me blankly, between two trees. I grunted. I didn't hear the things as loudly as before, but I had to get going. Rain had aided me as I finally cleared my eyes somewhat and looked at him again. And he was gone, but I saw through where he stood and saw the compound walls, the gate in the distance. I made a dead bolt and ran for my fucking life. I clicked the remote on my belt, but it refused to work and the gate refused to open. I tried the vest radio and screamed, "Open it! Isaac! Open the fucking gate!" I don't know if I knew it was more than likely broken. I didn't fucking care. As I was nearing it, 50 meters, 35 meters, I could still hear something chasing me. Surprised I even kept a hold of my guns as I ran. And then the gate started to open. Isaac stood there and fired something I found out to be a flare gun. The gate stopped after it opened 3 feet, and I dove in, face eating a dirt gravel mixture. I once again picked myself up as I heard Isaac say something along the lines of, "Holy shit, what is that?" Barely. I barely had time to listen. I pointed for the box mounted to the inside of the wall. Yeah, shh. I tried to talk, half spitting out dirt. "What? Stop speaking pig Latin. Hit the fucking electric." And Isaac caught on. He pulled open the box and pulled the switch. Where the wall segments met, there were spikes and bars connecting the tops of them, allowing us to wrap the barbed wire around. They sprang to life as electricity surged and zapped out. We didn't care to see if it amounted to anything. And hauling my ass inside with the redneck and collapsing against the side counter as my lungs felt like they were melting. "Dwight?" John came down the stairs. "What happened?" Oh, the running must have torn up my throat as I spat out some blood into the kitchen sink, and turning on the faucet and washing it down, I shook my head. Brain was pounding, legs hurting. Isaac set the smoking flare gun on the counter as he went to the fridge and cracked open an energy drink. "He just saw some ghouls, Johnny." I tried to shake away the wear and tear my body had. "John," wiping my face, walking out the kitchen and towards the stairs of the house, leading up and around to the living room. "Go to your room." For once, he listened and nodded. "Dad gonna tell me about what's outside?" "No." I shook my head. "He's gonna tell all of us." Isaac had stopped me from almost literally kicking open Theodore's door. My arms were too tired, and primal instinct again almost took over. I came into Theodore's office, muddy, wet, and it showed as he was more concerned with me stepping onto the carpet in front of his desk. "Jesus, Dwight! Care about a man's things for what? And who is that?" he asked, pointing to Isaac. I realized I forgot to tell him about our new friend. And Isaac chimed in. "Isaac, sir. Isaac." "Who let you in, Dwight?" "Well, I mean, he was, we were, but you know, rain, storm, lost child. You never come out of this office, apparently." Isaac scratched the back of his head as he tried to come to my defense. "Jesus, Nolan, I thought I paid you to..." And I slammed a hand down on the paperwork in front of him, leaning over the desk at him. "Listen here." "Dwight, those were for..." "Shut up." I think I half spat the forest floor into his face. He got the message and quietened down. "I just literally ran my ass through most of that forest trying to save a missing kid. It turns out the kid wasn't there at all. Just some whatever the fuck things you never told me about. And I still refuse to." Isaac sniffed the air and looked at me. "Jesus, did you piss yourself?" The look I gave back must have changed his mind. Oh shit. Yeah, sorry. I cannot protect you, your son, your land, or this motherfucking house when all I'm given to go off of is a deer stunning rifle, a pistol, and a whole lot of excuses. Bullshit, Dwight. I really don't. Oh, yes, you do. You didn't spend millions building a house here and not know about what lurks right under your house. Right under your nose. Come clean, or we're going to take a walk in the park with whatever's out there, and you can ask where the fuck Danny went. Danny? He didn't seem surprised entirely, more sort of caught off guard. It was someone who seems to have gone missing in your woods. A missing child? Yep. Isaac shook his head. Look, Dwight, I think this guy's probably hiding some sketchy shit in his closet. I bet you $5 Danny's underneath the hat. All right, just... Theodore took his glasses off, rubbing at his temples. Now, sadly, I've got no more time. Writing all this down, the entire shit show it was, it took a lot of time. When I get back, I'll fill you in on what us three talked about. But trust me, it's the reason it was a cleanup after the storm. We got funded several $1,000s to up security, and why we're driving into town tomorrow. We're going to get to the bottom of all of this. I'll be back soon as I can, hopefully sooner than last time, and tell you what we found and learned. I'm a security guard hired to protect an estate. The forest has eyes. Part 4. Let's get straight into that. Hey, it's me again, Nolan. Dwight Nolan. Your resident security guard, stuck in southeastern forest hell, and someone who's just too painfully stupid not to buy a connecting flight out of here. I really wish I would. It would save me a lot of effort too. Well, so many of you might be wondering just what me, Theodore, and Isaac hashed out in that office on that rainy night not so long ago. Does he know what's going on? Does he have the answers? Will this be so we can leave? Well, yes and no. And for the elephant in the room, well, let me just transcribe it for you. I know something's out there, but I don't know exactly what. When I picked this plot of land for its seclusion and low price, I thought nothing about it, even with the local rumors. It was a perfect place to sit down and relax. He rubbed his temples before reaching into his drawer and pulling out a small glass cleaner, which he used to defog his lenses. I should have known something was amiss. 17 workers don't just go missing from on-site accidents. Screwed up? Yes. Naive? Yes. Yet another dead end with no hard conclusions. Fucking yes. When I look back at Isaac, part of me wanted to pack my shit and get the hell out of Dodge, but whatever the fuck's out there. Theodore obviously doesn't know, and his take and experience was bad enough to try and do what the locals did and simply sweep it under the rug. But not me. No. I wasn't just gonna go running back to Chicago. No, this shit's down here and people are getting kidnapped, killed, or worse. I had to get to the bottom of this, and so I asked Theodore for a bit of a company help, and that help came in the form of 17,000 USD. It also came with Theodore getting an unexpected company call that forced him to have to fly out to Manhattan for the next week or so, and leave his son. Genuinely bad time call or a scumbag move, I'll let you decide. Regardless of Theodore's antics, we needed to upgrade our defense capabilities. Well, that's at least what Isaac and I came up with to put on the waiver. We were loading up in the SUV Theodore left behind and driving into town. We brought John with us because, like fuck, we're leaving some high schooler behind in that house alone. And then the gates opened. When Isaac and I cleared out all the shrub from the storm the day prior, it wasn't that bad. Now, nothing was on the trail, but all the surrounding trees by the front gate were gutted, slashed, carved, torn. If they wanted to get under our skin, I guess it worked, because I heard Isaac lock the doors and windows as we pulled out. So, what's your opinion on all of this? Isaac asked as we drove through the forest towards the main road. I shrugged. What's there to fucking say? I think we got all of our grievances out. Well, I guess, but... He leaned back in his seat, the endless forest walls lining the sides of the road, almost hypnotic. Why haven't the cops gone after... What's in those woods? Like, seriously? The police are civil servants. Out here they're paid in peanuts, given low stocks of equipment, and their uniform consists of a polo. I slowed the car as we started going down a slope, gazing at him. Would you want to be a small-town cop, to go marching into the woods with nothing but a flashlight and a hope? Still, man, you can't say it isn't weird. Well, you can ask him when we meet them. Isaac gave me a harsh look at my comment, and I pulled Danny's hat out of my pocket. The SUV slowed to a stop at the main road. Well, it could have fooled me for thinking this wasn't an interstate line. An almost perfect T intersection, and with plenty of trees smothering all sides of the road as we stopped. It was quiet, dead quiet. We turned the car right and we were driving westward to the town, down the road. In fact, we were about 10 minutes into the drive before I wondered if we were going the right way. Where the fuck is this place? I asked no one in particular in the car. Oh, if we get lost in the woods, shoot me, Isaac quipped. Oh, it's just up ahead. Look. John said from the back when both of us turned, and, well, it seemingly just appeared at the next turn we took. Well, it was weird because before we were driving down a hill, we didn't see it before. Maybe it was just the trees. Forest is damn weird. Alright, John, I said, looking to the back seat. Where's this friend's house of yours? Now, you might be angered by the idea of Theodore just dropping his kid during the middle of some land dispute strife with the people in the woods. And so were we. So when we had to go to town and drop John off somewhere, disconnected while we were busy on our little corporate shopping trip, it seemed ideal. Well, the drive there, well, the aura in this place doesn't sit any better with me than the woods. The town looks like if you took what you'd imagine a southern logging town and placed it just down the peak of a mountain. A salt mill, logging yard in the middle of the town square area, surrounded by a metal fence, a bar, a gun store. Handy. We needed one of those. And well, almost no people. I'm not joking. There was an atmosphere of some sort of disconnectedness as we made our way through what should be a busy part of town. But instead, nothing. Some pedestrians that seemed all too busy to get where they were going. A car every now and then. The suburb-style area. Basically, take that small neighborhood from every Halloween movie. Medium class houses, brick and pine wood, were absolutely abandoned. Place is fucking creepy, Isaac said, head peering out of the window at the houses. He turned back to John. Kid, you sure this is where your friend lives? And John was too enthralled in whatever handheld device he had. Honestly, it looked like an iPad. I let out a simple, mm-hmm. You sure she's not possessed, right? Isaac asked again, and John half chuckled. That's not really reassuring. You have reached your destination, the robotic voice on the GPS said as we pulled up to the house. The pine wood planks painted blue, and with a staircase leading up to the door on the right side of the house's face. And large windows on the left side, and we pulled off to the side. This the place? I asked. Yep, thanks guys. I'll see you later, John said, grabbing his bag and hopping out of the car. I could see the look on Isaac's face as he looked around. The street was dead. We were on the edge of town, but cars were everywhere. Why did no one come outside? Why would anyone come outside is a better question. I watched John walk up the stairs and ring the doorbell. Hey, get a load of that guy, Isaac said, gazing over at a house across the street. On an old weathered porch stood a man, average height, build, but that's not what stood out. Well, he stood, awkwardly, like an unnatural posture, shoulders held too high, legs apart, like I said, awkwardly. He didn't look right, or even more, he was holding a water canister, watering a plant. Oh, that'd be fine, if he wasn't flooding the plant so much it was visibly overflowing. He seemed too fixated on something. John. One of the alarms in my head immediately set off. Out of my peripheral vision, I saw John's friend's what I guess was a father. Honestly, due to that beard, he could have been Bigfoot. Opened the door. And seeing how he was like 6'5" and probably ate cows for breakfast, I once again felt the kid would be safe. I waved. Isaac spat some chewing tobacco. Actually, I don't know, onto the floor, and gave a nod. He reasonably felt weirded out and headed back inside. I put the car in reverse too, back on out, and saw the man staring at us. Like, dead staring at us. Eyes looking dead. Posture just as awkward. But he was just staring at us. Too distracted. He wasn't even aware his canister was pouring and drenching his dad loafers in water. And then he awkwardly strode into the house. Like the rotator cuffs on his hips were broken, and he half shoveled inside. A moment of silence passed, only broken by the hum of the engine. Yeah, nice people here, Isaac said. Yeah, indeed. And contrary to what might be the popular opinion, we're only slightly batshit for continuing to remain on post at the Catamouth estate. Or at least I am. Isaac's, he's just crazy. Not even hired. Actually, I think he's just been using it as an excuse to eat the house's food. Anyways, we're slightly batshit, but not stupid. Well, Theodore gave us a considerable amount of funds to increase security, and we intended to do just that. We pulled back up to Augusta. We passed on our way in. I looked old, converted like someone bought a dentist shop and renovated it to be a cellar of handheld self-reassurance. Gareth's Arms was written above the door. When we stopped the car and stepped out, the air felt weird. Sure, it's slightly muggy from the rainstorm. The sky is grey, but it felt weird, like something was concealed. The town was hiding something just underneath the layer of atmosphere. I guess this is what physical mystery feels like. The gun shop didn't look half as jury-rigged on the inside. Oh no. Several firearms lined the walls, Kevlar vests, glasses, crates in each corner of what I can guess were surplus munitions. And a lone cashier, a guy, possible mid-40s, wearing blue khakis, a utility vest, and a set of glasses, with a small mohawk on his head. He gazed up at us, and his look of slight confusion was understandable. A man dressed in camo, hunting gear, and Coors Light memorabilia, flanked by a poor man's rent-a-cop, in a leather jacket and jeans. Isaac took the lead without hesitation. "Hello, friend. How can Markel help you today?" The cashier announced, half understandable and half a stereotypical movie villain. "Has your brother a marble?" Isaac stepped up to the counter. "All right, Marcus. We're here on a corporate mission to buy some exportable democracy. You see, we got a pest problem we need to take care of." "Ah." Markel slapped his hands and rubbed them together. "We got plenty to defeat pests." Markel reached over and took a small revolver from the wall, placing it on the counter. "A 5-shot 32. Perfect for any sort of rat infestation." Isaac scratched the back of his head. "I need something bigger." "Bigger?" Markel raised an eyebrow. "Maybe something with more finesse. 22? Nah, bigger. 38? Bigger. 308? I already tried that. Just what kind of rats do you have?" I sighed. "Isaac, just tell him the truth." "Truth?" Markel raised an eyebrow, now confused. Isaac placed both hands on the counter. "Well, you see, we've actually caught a badger infestation." Markel's confusion grew. I shook my head, having enough of this. "We got some forest problems." Markel looked at me. "Forest problems?" I crossed my arms. "Things that go bump in the night. We live in this town." "Sir, I assure you, I have no idea what you mean." I slid my hands down my face. "Monsters. Fucking monsters. The kind of mothers that ate 308 rounds and kept chasing me with wide eyes and devilish grins." A tense silence passed as Markel stared at me. "Sir, are you feeling all right?" He hasn't slept in a while. You see, Isaac tried to turn the conversation back around. This time, Markel had enough. Look, you two are not here to play games. You need a proper registration, money, and authority to buy the types of arms you seek. Who'd you even work for? Kasimov Estate Security. I said that, and all the colour from his face drained. Kasimov? What? Isaac looked around confused. That means something in German, like, your mother's a who? Gareth, come on down here. It's important. Marco called to the back of the room. What is it, Marco? An Eastern European voice called from the back. 2 Europeans in a gun shop in Southern America. Honestly, not the weirdest thing I've seen all month. I had 2 men from the Kasimov estate. After a second of pin-drop silence, a smaller but no less dangerous-looking man emerged from the back. Bald head, rough beard, and body built like he wrestled trees since he was a kid. He walked up and looked us over. Kasimov? The fuck does that mean? It's just some privatized woods, Isaac said, still confused. Poor man. Isaac, are you actually brain dead? I asked bluntly. What? The woods are freaky. So what if there's a cabin there? Honestly, this man must have been half buzzed. The Kasimov estate? Oh, that's a bad omen. Gareth, the shorter man said in a thick, what I can guess was Slavic accent. Gareth said, no one ever buys land outside this town. An unspoken rule. Well, there are things in the woods you don't touch, you don't disturb. Kasimov must not have gotten a memo, because he bought a whole slew of it deep in the woods. And ever since the work started there, bad things have occurred. This shit's been going on? Jesus, Isaac said, shaking his head. The construction of this house and the walls took 3 months to complete, with the lives of 17 workers. Construction accidents happen. There was a lot of electrical faucets to be built. Maybe it's just a coincidence? I knew it wasn't, but it wouldn't hurt to prod. And Gareth chuckled and shook his head. Electrical utilities. They don't tear a man's intestines out and string them across the trees like garland, and pound them through the mouth of branches, or rip them apart. Yep, Isaac said, nodding his head, mildly intrigued. That about adds up. If you boys work here, my advice is get on the next train right out of town. No one can stop what's happening there. Gareth said, a sympathetic look piercing his so far cold demeanour. Well, sadly, I've got a job to do, Gareth. One that includes an upgrade in firepower. You think you can help us out? Gareth chuckled, waving us off. Markel help them with whatever. They're dead, anyways. Yo, bud, Isaac said, leading back towards me. Hit up the sheriff's office around here or something. Report that kid missing. I'll take care of this. Before I could protest, Markel stepped in. Missing kid? I showed him the hat. If any more colour could escape his face, it did just then. The local pub has a missing persons board, and I'll head there to see if it matches with anyone. Don't worry, he extended his hand. Papa, Isaac's skilled in this. I got this. I stared blankly at him. I've known you for a collective week. He said, unsure of what that meant. You want me to trust you with enough money to buy several T-60 tanks and leave you unattended? Look, Isaac interrupted and pointed his index finger at me. I saved your life. I opened that gate. Once again, I stared, unimpressed. If I was some witch, I could have killed you by now. He had a point. About as strong as Kabul, but still a point. I continued to wonder if I could trust him as I walked out the door. The cold, still air of the town immediately drawing me from the thought. A short stroll down the road and I was looking at the thick iron door of the bar. Any windows too high on the walls and too small for anyone to look into. Well, the inside wasn't grimy, but it sure was gritty. The darkness of the cramped bar only permeated by the LED lights on the walls and a few top-down bright lights on the ceiling. Old vintage metal signs, circled tables on the main floor with booths lining the far right wall, and at the far back, "Bring them home" was plastered across the top corkboard in red letters, and on it, crammed together by the tens of missing person flyers. Young, old, man, woman, child. No discrimination. I don't think a damn person noticed me as I walked over to it, looking around at the flies. Danny, Danny, Danny. I don't know if it's the apparition. The decoy was accurate, but I barely saw the kid. Then I saw him, bottom right corner of the board, missing. A picture of the boy, round head, clean-cut hair, blue eyes with a smile. Name, Daniel Hothfield. Age, 9. Date of last sighting, 4th of the 3rd, 18. Notes, last seen wearing red and yellow. Cool. Redacted. I took out my phone. The number listed the number as being his parental guardian, his mum, and barely got past the area code before I heard a voice call from my back right. "What you looking at, stranger?" I turned. A large man in a camo hat and coat sat at a booth along the wall, along with a woman and 2 men. The other 2 males looked up as the woman just continued to finish her drink. I'm just... You know, disturbing the dead's looked down on around here. One of the other males perked up. A pit grew in my stomach as I stepped back, answering only, "Missing doesn't mean dead." The man in the camo hat simply scoffed and shook his head. "Boy, down here we don't like to make prank calls and fuck with missing kids. Go back to Chicago." I was at first confused, then realized my jacket had a Chicago patch on it. "I'm not pranking. I saw him out in the woods, or at least I got a lead." The third guy shook his head, looking back at me. "A lead?" The third guy shook his head, looking back at me. "Me and my boys went looking out there for a whole month. You expect me to believe some gritty-looking son of a... is the only one to turn up a lead? What, you saw a ghost?" "Not quite," I answered, taking the hat from my pocket and holding it up. When all 3 men's eyes widened slightly, Camo Hat nudged the woman to his right. "Marion." And she gazed at him. He gestured towards me, and something by her look told me that she was Mrs. Hothfield. The talk was intimate, to say the least. I don't want to tell everything that was said, but here's what happened. Marion and her son, Danny, along with a few friends, went camping. All went well, until he up and vanished. Not during the night, not from wandering off. It was actually in the middle of the day. They turned their heads, turned back, and he went missing in the middle of eating his food. The guys at the booth, hunters who went with, think he was kidnapped. Kept saying Danny saw someone out in the trees. They couldn't see whoever it was. At least it was one loose end. Some of the other cases on the board get weird. Woman vanished from her RV in the middle of driving down the road. Her shoe was identified and found over 20 miles away in a nearby cave. Mother dropped off her baby at a parent's house, came home to find Grandma and Grandpa deceased. The child was never found. Kicker was the cause of death was listed as natural, but never had any real reason. And finally, Missouri State Trooper Kyle Brunson. Well, there was a call about a woman lost on the road, staggering as if she was drunk. Reinforcements arrived to see the SUV ransacked and abandoned. Kyle's hat was found, sliced and soaked in water, in the middle of a dry day. I decided to go outside for some fresh air and head back to the SUV. Stuff will mess with your mind if you let it sit there for too long. When I arrived back to the vehicle, Isaac was there, eating a tub of something. "What's that?" I asked. "What's what?" he answered, in the middle of eating. "Your food." "Who?" He looked at the half-eaten tub of ice cream. Some good stuff." "How did you buy that?" "With the money you gave me." I stared blankly. "The money I trusted you to buy supplies." He held out his hands defensively. "Hey!" He stared at me, holding up one index finger and pointing it at me slowly. "I saved you." "So you keep telling me." I shook my head as I headed to the back, and Isaac continued to lean on the vehicle, pleased. "Plus, it was $5. You should see the weird shit they got in stores here. You know, the bookstore is selling a real Necronomicon." He was cut off as we heard the sound of a car driving up behind us. My hand froze and gripped the trunk as I saw it was the sheriff's car. Well, it's probably not the best time to flash 300 pounds of ordnance. When the cruiser stopped, the engine still running as a short, yet husky sheriff exited the vehicle, flanked by a skinnier one with a handlebar stash. "Evening, fellas," the main sheriff said, hands grabbing his collar, and his partner sat on the hood, and Isaac and I could only stare at each other. Isaac spoke. "Oh God, don't piss them off. You gonna shoot us?" I am now certain I will one day die because of Isaac. But the main sheriff furrowed his brow, looking over at his partner, and then back to us, and simply chuckled. "Nah, we just do that to all the outsiders. Truth is, a call came in that someone saw your friend loading more rifles than we got at the station, 10 times into that trunk there, and wanted to check and see if everything was all right." Just shopping," Isaac said, finishing off his tub and tossing it in the nearest dumpster, which missed and dinged off the side along with the spoon. Wait, where did he get the metal spoon from? Well, the cop on the hood raised his eyebrows. "Shopping? What you preparing for? The Chinese to invade?" "Hunting," I corrected Isaac and backed away from the trunk. "Just hunting supplies." And the main cop sputtered as he walked over, glaring into the back window. "I assume you're chasing a real nasty bear with that 30-06 right there." I looked shocked and non-verbally asked Isaac. "Really?" He shrugged and gestured back. "What?" "You boys want to be straight with me? Because those dragon breath rounds are technically illegal." I dropped the discreetness as I looked at Isaac. "You actually bought incendiary shit?" "Okay, you know what?" Isaac said defiantly, pointing at me. "You want him dead or not?" I shook my head as I looked at the cop. "We're just stocking up on security." He laughed this time. "Ha! Lot of home defense. Where'd you live?" "Up the road." His eyebrows rose as I continued. "Casamoth Estate." And the man's face grew serious as he backed away from the trunk. His partner got off the hood and straightened it up. "Casamoth Estate, huh?" The hood cop brushed himself off. "You probably gonna need more than that." The main cop looked right at me. "You security?" "Mm-hmm." "Your boss kicked a hornet's nest by weaseling in there." He gazed from me to Isaac and back to me. "Well, we never saw you." And then, without another word, both officers climbed back into their patrol car and drove away. Something told me, despite his jokiness, the look in Isaac's eye, both unanimously agreed with me that this situation kept getting more fucked up by the day. We picked John up, neighbor no longer on the porch, but peering at us from the front window. We asked John, but he was confused. The guy slipped back from the windows before he could see. It's been a few days. Isaac and I have looked around the house defenses, and we're trying to get things sealed up. We got a checklist, one which includes scanning the trail over and recovering the lost ATV. Speaking of which, that's in an hour. It's been quiet so far. Let's see if it remains that way. I'm a security guard, hired to protect an estate. The forest has eyes. Part 5. Let's get straight into that. Yes, I am alive. I guess to rest any fears. No, I did not get killed, possessed, kidnapped or anything of the sort. Yet. My absence from logging, or is logging the right term? Or charting? My routine of keeping you guys informed with what's happening here started at first, because cleaning up after the aftermath from the storm with just 2 people, well, it took as long as you'd expect. At first, things started getting, well, I'll just tell you. Our minds are a bit confused from our little shopping trip in town. John in more than fine spirits and a trunk full of guns. We were all at a relatively high morale, until, well, we reached the gate. Now the gates and the wall itself was intact, and even then, none of the scratches or claw marks on it really disturbed us. No, it was the knowing, after the storm about a week ago, we had cleaned out the front of the compound. So, when we pulled up, and all the trees in a 10-foot radius around the gate were clawed, battered and gutted, we knew something had decided to show up while we were gone. The heck is all this? Isaac rolled down his window and took a look at the near 20 mutilated trees around us. I've been in war both across seas and on home turf. I knew this was and could only mean one thing. They're sending us a message. We headed inside and, well, the yard, house and everything inside the walls was unharmed. Even as the fog and mist from the hard rain still hung over the estate grounds. John headed up to the house as I circled back with Isaac. It was time to look at what he had bought. And well, Jesus. Boxes of packed firearms, in both wooden crates and plastic gun cases. Ammunition boxes looking like they belonged to the US military base rather than the trunk of a poor rent-a-cop and his hick cohort. And tons of, from what my experience says, is a little more across the lines of illegal firearms. I ran a hand over my forehead, the sound of the quiet forest around only permeated by the clicking of a large gun case as Isaac opened it, with eyes as giddy as a child on Christmas. "Ha! Let's see what they think of this," he said as he flipped the top of the case open and showed me a Grade A man-killer. The 30-06 rifle round had been a seriously deadly armament for now just over a century, being used in everything from machine guns to rifles that could knock out your truck's engine. And so when he pulled out that hunk of a battle rifle, and I gazed around, I wondered, if all of this failed, then what in the actual hell was going to stop there? "Dwight! Isaac!" I peered around the SUV while Isaac continued to inspect all the hardware he'd purchased. "John?" I called back. He just gazed at the doorknob. Shit. No, it was just a pea shooter. I grabbed the small pistol from the car's glove compartment and hurried up. I wasn't greeted with some monster, nor a ghost or goblin or forest ghoul. Just yet another message. A dog collar hanging on the doorknob, a good 20 or 30 meters inside of the impermeable security wall, and with the name Richie carved into the dog's tag. It's not the obviously scary things that haunt you. It's the out-of-place ones that get under your skin. And oh boy, I was preparing myself to see a lot of that shit for the next few days. The storm has completely shaken up the forest. Branches, rocks, hell, even entire fucking trees had collapsed onto that miles-long perimeter path surrounding the estate. And due to the public landowner regulations, the deputy enforcing them like an absolute fucking prick, he stated, "The staff of the Casamouth Estate grounds must clear and maintain their trail to meet county standards and..." You get the gist. And due to the fact that no one wants to stick their head in the woods, besides Isaac and I, that meant that this was going to be a lengthy process. Even more so that we were down one entire ATV. 3 days after we arrived at our new equipment, Isaac and I hit the trail. Standard stuff at first. Move the boulder, clear the tree branch, scare off the leapfrogging naked men with a rifle shot into the air, hook a chain from one top side of a tree to the rear of the ATV, and painstakingly move it over to the side of the trail. Pretty standard affair, until one day, a few hours past noon, we came across a monstrous oak tree. And I mean, a giant fucking oak tree. I don't know how the hell the storm managed to uproot this thing, but it was laying straight across the trail, a full head of branches and all. We tried hooking up the chain and I have it at my best shot, trying to push from the other side. But all we got was the ATV kicking up tons of trail dirt and a half an hour wasted. No good, I said as Isaac turned off the ATV and climbed over it, sitting on top. Head back to the house and grab the chainsaw. We were going to have to do this the hard way. Isaac looked around paranoid. "You sure?" I knew what he was asking. "You sure you want to sit here in the middle of these woods alone?" I nodded my head, and although hesitantly, he rode off. If I knew anything about these woods from the past month, it was safer to sit on the tree when the sun was high in the sky than it was to be in pitch black. Or at least, that's what I tell myself, despite my gut instincts and the pit in my stomach saying otherwise. I checked out the roots of the tree. I wanted to see just how deep they were, in case we were going to have to cut it in half, or if we could possibly just de-root what was left and drag it out. It was clear out of the dirt all right, but not by any sort of storm weather. The dirt was freshly dug, and you could tell because plenty of other trees were covered in dry mud that smelled of rain, moss, and sludge. This one The dirt was dry, and the wood was mutilated. Bite marks severed remaining roots headed into the ground. Crude scratch marks covered the bottom of the trunk. This wasn't the work of Mother Nature. The sound of breaking branches gaining quickly on me from behind drew my attention, like the sound of a grown man sprinting dead at me. I turned, and despite what I said earlier about my trigger finger, I fired off a set of rounds. Nothing. Not a goddamn soul in sight. Whatever rounds I fired off, at least one impacted the tree, because besides the clear forest view I had, the sound of the bullet ripping through the oak wood and bark flying everywhere painted a pretty clear picture. This, I was all a distraction, trying to halt our progress. I stepped back onto the path to hear the familiar sound of an ATV heading down this way. Isaac stopped, a branch cutter, chainsaw, and other equipment strapped to the back. "You alright?" he asked. I didn't even look at him in the eyes, too focused on gazing around the forest. Yeah, I exhaled harshly, steam visible in the only relatively cool forest air. Let's get going. We were making good progress, despite the tight schedule we had to run on, not wanting to get caught out there at night. And so good, in fact, that by yesterday we managed to make it a clean mile and a half up the eastern side of the estate trail, passing right by Isaac's former camping spot. I stopped the ATV right around where I was last time. I knew because the heavy brake marks were still somehow mildly embedded in the trail, and Isaac gazed around confused. "What?" I jutted my head over to a large short cliff face. "You want to see if you left anything?" He goes over to where I was looking inside. "Seriously?" Couldn't hurt." He muttered under his breath, shaking his head as he hopped off and walked through the trees at a ready. I simply just turned off the ATV and quickly made my way through. As we rounded the cliff face, it was strange. He'd left nothing behind, well, that was for certain. But what I don't remember was him cleaning up his extinguished fire, or the ring of rocks around it, or the stumps he had cut down. The entire area looked like it was completely untouched, and that was only a week ago. Isaac didn't seem to notice this. What he did notice was something by the rock face that I didn't. "Dwight?" he said in a tone I could recognize as anxious. New for him. "What's up?" I said, turning around, and then my brain shut off for a split second as I saw it. A cellar door. Barring some minor scratches and weathered marks, it was in near perfect condition. A cellar door. A large wooden bar kept the handles closed, and the entire thing was connecting to the cliff wall, right where his tent was. "You didn't raise your tent over that, did you?" I said, already knowing his answer. Isaac shook his head in response. It should be noticed, as much as I only check in periodically, Isaac's demeanor, his slightly jovial, jokey trucker sense of humor, is how he carries himself. And so for me to look him in the eyes and see a grown man with a shotgun in his hands, looking like a scared child, well, let's see what's inside. Isaac looked at me, silent, but his wide eyes spoke for himself. "What?" I asked. "It's not like we can just leave the shit out here. What if this is where the bastards are sleeping during the daytime?" I asked myself the other side of that question as I shouldered my rifle and pulled the wooden bar off. What were we going to do if an army of angry ghouls waited on the other side of that door, waiting for a couple of schmucks to open it? I guess we didn't really need to worry about that, because when I opened the door, Isaac aiming down the sight of his shotgun, it opened to nothing. A smooth, solid rock face. Hell, it didn't even look cemented over, or like rocks were dumped to bury it. It just looked like someone had built a cellar door and never dug down. I laughed honestly. It was kind of funny. Both of us pissing ourselves at the open door to that. I shook my head. I was about to give Isaac some crap for getting me even a bit unnerved, until I saw his face. Now, like I said, Isaac's usually a pretty funny guy. And in one part, his sense of humor. Another part, even as he saw what laid outside the gate that night a week ago, he still found some time to take the piss out of the danger of it all. And so to see him standing there, gazing at the featureless rock surface, probably looking how I was when I saw the things during the lightning flash. "Isaac?" I asked, only to see his breath was heavy, his now sweaty hands clutching the shotgun. "Isaac, for the love of fu—" He aimed his shotgun at the rock face. "There's nothing there." Thinking quick, I scrambled, pulling the far door shut and kicking close the other door. Isaac followed up by nearly dropping his goddamn gun and hastily putting a wooden bar back across the cellar doors, and then stepped back, nearly vomiting as he tried to catch his breath. "Isaac?" I asked. The man buckled over as he shook his head. "Isaac, what the fuck did you see?" He simply shook his head. "We're getting out of here." He walked back up to the path to the trail, and I called out again, "Isaac!" He still won't tell me what the fuck happened. And so we finally reached it. Nearly a week of trying, trail clearing, meeting the less dangerous, but still just as weird inhabitants of the forest. All culminated to us finally reaching the northern curve of the path, and surprisingly, it was barely touched. We expected some weird shit. Hell, I expected some sort of pentagram made of trees, rocks, and rabbit corpses. But no, nothing. We rounded the bend and I braked. Part of me really wanted to try and salvage that ATV. Not like shipping it out to a dead-end area like this. And those state-of-the-art, literal trailblazers aren't cheap. But sadly, my hopes were dashed. It wasn't in the path anymore. Barbed wire was still there, and chunks of the tire were still attached. The ATV was off to the side of the trail, in the tree. I think the chassis was scattered across the ground between the trees. The damned bastards had spited us, ripped that vehicle apart, and spread literally every last part of it across the damn forest around. And I sighed, turning off the ATV as I buried my face in my hands and rubbed my eyes. God damn it! I slapped the handlebars as I climbed off, and Isaac looking around. "I sure did a number on it," he said, kicking over one of the tire rims. Yeah. I headed over to what I could tell was the engine block or what was left and had to pull it out from a small pit in the ground. But I freed it. God, did it stink. A slightly black coating was all over the block. You feel that?" Isaac blurted out as he gazed out at nothing in particular. I gazed up, inspecting the block, and they must have really distracted me because I didn't notice at first. He gave me a look that just said, "Really?" I looked around and I felt it. The burning sensation. The paranoia that causes a man to freak out when he's this isolated. The feeling of being watched. But that wasn't what really unnerved me. It's the fact that not a bird, nor a cicada, not a goddamn sound could be heard around us. "Hey, Dwight?" I remember John's voice piercing that sound, his voice almost bellowing through the radio. I stood up, tucking the engine block underneath my arm as I walked over to the ATV, my free arm grabbing the radio. "What's up, John?" You got a friend at the gate." The scraping sound of me forcing that damn black shit-coated ATV hunk onto the bed of our good ATV was halted. "Friend?" I asked, a pit forming in my stomach. Yeah. Your friend. Says he knows you from Jordan. Name's Clancy." "Dwight," John called out from the radio several times, but I was already on the damn ATV so fast, I think Isaac had to nearly jump on from behind, or be left behind. And John asked again, "Dwight, what's wrong?" "Lock the door to the room and don't talk to it. Don't look at it. Don't fucking breathe near that microphone." I barked into the radio. "But what?" "Just do as I say." Silence answered from the radio, but I could tell it got the message. Isaac was struggling to hang on to the vehicle as it bounced off the freshly cleared, but still just as rugged path. In fact, it wasn't until I braked hard on a gravel driveway that I realized he'd been trying to talk the entire way back. "Jesus, Dwight, fuck's wrong?" Isaac said as he stumbled off of me as I took my gun off its sling and put it stock to my shoulder. "Talk to me, soldier boy. Who the fuck's Clancy?" I aimed down my sights as I scanned a nearby area, making my way to the receiver gate. Clancy was part of my platoon a few years back when I was a part of the infantry. I could see out of my peripheral vision he looked confused. Maybe he didn't put two and two together. And? What? The shapeshifter? Maybe it overheard you two on the phone or something. Impossible. Why? I lowered my gun and looked him dead in the eyes. Clancy and a few of his battle brothers died back in 2010 with an IED. And I could see the tension in his entire body die down as he lowered his arms. I pulled him out of the truck myself. I remember shaking my head as I headed over to the receiver, gazing into the black lens of the camera. I hadn't spoken a word about him since that damn day. Now, the kicker wasn't just that. The receiver was clear, sure. I even checked with John. The damn 4K camera was still in check. The speaker, well, it was in fact right where he said my old battle brother should be standing. A circle of dead grass laid, a damn stark contrast to the green around it. I needed some time, understandably, to swallow this fucking pill down. Like I said, I'm sorry. I picked myself up and started charting this over the course of the past few days. That's odd. Lights are flickering. I'm gonna post this in case our power goes out. I promise I'll be back sooner than last time. This is far from over. I'm a security guard hired to protect an estate. The forest has eyes. Part 6. Let's get straight into that. You know the saying, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. Or half a step forward, a kick to the gut sending us 10 feet back. At least, that's the way I would acquaint it. Things finally happened. And this site's fucking post-screen glitches out. I don't know if it's coincidental or... Anyways, to start off, remember the flickering lights and the slight power dip from last time? Well, it started to be a routine thing nowadays. A light bulb here, a flickering of one of the monitors. Then it started to get worse. The front room TV would zap off, a bedroom clock, and the only bedroom clock would reset. It started getting too bad even Isaac got tired of it. Stupid $1 billion piece of shit! It goes on about every time he stomps down the stairs, only to see the generator is at the top of condition. He notes a few things. It feels like he's being watched. The faces in the concrete keep looking at him funnily, and he swears he sees the walls in different materials every time he walks up and down the stairs. Honestly, he needs to drop his drinking habit, although maybe not everything was due to his liquor. Earlier today, I was checking on the engine block in a security room, and Isaac was muttering to himself or something. And the white noise of all the cameras and monitors graced my ears as I continued to work, trying to scrape that black gunk off of the metal. I was doing well, even had a few samples, and then the power went out. You know that feeling of dread, the sudden, oh shit, moment, where it started to form as I saw the monitors one by one started to go a bit haywire. Then all the noise and the light cut out, and I was left in a void of darkness, sitting at a desk, my inspection tools in hand. My eyes darted, trying to adjust, as I slightly panicked from a noise in the corner that I then learned was just Isaac hurrying out of his tent. Fucking shit! Fuck, goddammit! I told you! He said, stumbling out of the canvas and light fabric teepee. Honestly, he just needs to move into one of the rooms. Can't blame him though. Place has an aura. Regardless, I grabbed my rifle to the side of my desk, the automatic one. The one I said I would only use in case of a home invasion. As I tapped a damn flashlight onto it, I could hear Isaac shuffling through his bag and grabbing an old weathered 5-shot. Alright, let's go get these ghosts. There were a number of things wrong with that sentence. Most I chummed up to the alcohol on his breath. Bud Light. Ugh. You can't shoot ghosts. I muttered to him as I carefully opened the door and checked the hallway. Put some fucking pants on, for Christ's sake. Isaac then put on a coat. This man was gonna get me killed. We both moved out, quickly checking some of the ground floor rooms, and I took the lead. Isaac kept my ass covered. Nothing. Not a goddamn thing. Hell, the front door was still locked and everything in the living room was in one piece. I gazed up at the tall ceiling of the main room. "John, you there?" John answered back by shining a flashlight off the banister. "The power go out?" It was then Isaac pulled one of the heavy curtains open, and a bright wave of light shined through. Not all of it, apparently. The exterior wall's lights were still on, and the loud sound of the generator was chugging on strong. It was a bit of a contingency Theodore and I had, in case of a power surge, with all things considered, lined up pretty well with the situation. "What happened?" John asked from the floor above. "Dunno. Blackout. Some crazy driver ran into the power line or something," Isaac suggested as he peeked out, half leaning back and forth. I walked over to the window and peeked out. I could be. No. I pointed to the far-off light shining just through the tops of the trees. The town's lights are still on. "Damn ghost must have knocked out the power," Isaac burped in his hand as he spun the cylinder of his revolver. "John, stay in your room. We're going to go busting. We're going to have to work fast," I noted. "Surge generator will only keep the outside electricity on for a few hours." "Psh! Like the guys outside are afraid of electric anyways. Haven't seen one of them for weeks. Remember?" Isaac's attempt as group reassurance was met with a slight flickering of one of the floodlights. Only slight, and then laughing. Giggling, chuckles, the inhuman voices that came far off in the dark forest that sounded like he took an old man's laugh and turned the pitch down way too low. Whatever was out there knew our situation, somehow, and knew we were a thread away from losing our safety net. And inside the house, silence only filled the void between us before I stated, assertively, "John, go back to your room." I believe a while ago I talked about what was truly scary and creepy, most notably in the woods. It isn't the obvious, it's the out of place. For darkness, it's not the actual black void you stare into that gets under your skin. It's what lies behind. What you think lies behind. So when Isaac and I stood at the top of that staircase, gazing down my rifle's flashlight, only just barely illuminating the back wall, you can imagine the atmosphere. "We're gonna die," Isaac said as I took the lead, stepping down a few steps, rifle shouldered. "We're gonna die and it's gonna possess us." Maybe it was his liquid courage failing him. Nevertheless, Isaac closed the door behind us as I heard him pull the hammer back on his piece. "Well, has to do the latter in order to accomplish the former, right?" I asked, some sort of attempt to lighten the mood. The truth is, the flashlight did nothing. Like, actually nothing. Sure, it gave some light, but a small beam on a stairwell this dark, trying to light up a room with a laser light. All I saw, as we both carefully moved down, step by step, was the rough concrete wall at the bottom. And I kept pacing back in my mind. Divider. Just turn right and head to the generator. Turn right and get to the generator. As Isaac and I reached the bottom of the stairs, my boots hitting the wooden planks at the bottom, I huffed out, "Right, let's go," right before my face slammed into a brick wall. I stumbled back into what I then saw was a bookcase. A bookcase? I then remembered the basement didn't have floors furnished with wood, and Isaac looked around. I'm guessing his eyes adjusted to the short distance he could see and said, "Okay, I'm buzzed, but even I know something's off." Indeed, it was. What was supposed to be a basement was now a library. My nose aching, I lifted my rifle and pointed a light around. And strangely, the flashlight now worked as you would expect, illuminating while giving off a peripheral light, but showed not the basement that we knew, but the library. Lines of shelves filled a large rectangle area, and whether it was the dust in the air, sounds almost seemed muffled. "The hell's going on?" Isaac broke the thick silence and gave me some relief knowing he hadn't vanished or anything. He spotted a doorway at the other end of the library. There was only one thing that we could do. Press on. A part of me wondered what would greet us on the other side of the library door. A black void, the same room 1,000 times, horrific ghouls, all kinds of variables your mind throws together. Instead, we were greeted by a small turn of the century kitchen. There was an old black stove, racks hanging from the ceiling, a wooden table with what seemed to be a butcher's knife sticking out. It wasn't a dream, it was real. As crazy as this shit was, we were living it. As we made our way around the table towards what I could see was a door across, Isaac hurriedly pressed into me, his left hand, his free hand, grabbing onto the collar of my shirt. And I paused. The fuck is up? Isaac responded by looking around behind us in the strange disconnected head movements drunk people usually make. He kept his pistol pointed outwards behind us as he leaned in to talk to me. Something's behind us. The hairs on my neck stood up as I gazed around behind us. Not a goddamn thing in this medieval fucking kitchen besides us. Well, I thought for a moment, coming up with the words. We keep moving forward then. With that, I walked towards and through the strange kitchen, Isaac following, his hand still gripping the shirt on my shoulder. As we both neared the door, a pitch-black void-like doorway, I poked the barrel of my rifle in, flashlight attached. Almost seemed like it went through a curtain. Couldn't see the light on the other side. Retracting my barrel, I took a leap of faith and poked my head in. To see that we were in a goddamn tent, of all things. What the fuck? Was all I could mutter as I stepped through. And honestly, it was a tent. Isaac passed through with me. I could see through his haze, even he was weirded out by the scene. It was a small, rectangle tent of sorts, about 10 meters long and 6 meters across at each end. 6 bunk beds lie across the longer sides, and they were accompanied by 6 metal chests. In between the space of each bunk, there laid a dirty and smeared plastic square window block, and the kicker, no door at the other end of the tent. Well, shit. I looked around, the tent unnaturally uniform and sealed to the floor. I better double back. Chief? I turned to see Isaac now staring at a flat tent wall. That's a no-go. I walked out to the tent wall and pressed a hand up on it. Nothing. I even took my rifle and stuck and bashed the wall. The tent fabric must have been made of starch because it only moved so many feet. I'll just cut our way out, I said, defiant to all of this bullshit. I took out my knife, traditionally made for skinning and outdoor activities, but I think the creators could give me a pass on this one. As I shoved my knife through, Isaac started to gaze around the tent. A few seconds after, he asked me, What's up with that mask? I turned my head, and I'll admit a chill went up my back. The third bunk, the middle one, on my left, had at the time I thought was a haunted snowman mask. Must have been some sick joke. White skin, eyes were black beads like coal, and some sort of hole, I guess where a carrot should have gone, and jagged teeth, a la a creepy Frosty, or something. Hell, the more I looked at it, the more I got a kick out of it. I even laughed. Well, I guess Hallows Eve is around the corner. I turned back to cut him through the tent wall, only to see the gap I'd cut through the wall was now sealed and my knife laid on the floor. You want to play it like that, huh? Fine. Once again, stabbing my sharpened metal through the fabric, I started to cut upwards, hoping to carve out a small doorway in which we could exit from. But then I noticed something creeping through the crack. Water. Cold, melted water. A breeze of bitterly stale air. And snowflakes. The hell? I muttered as I peeked through. When we descended those stairs into the basement, the air was still cool, and the leaves had yet to fall on the trees. What I saw outside, I don't know where the hell this tent was. Might as well have been out in Canada. But the snow was near a meter high and surrounded the tent like a flood. What in the I was cut off as Isaac chimed in, apparently looking through one of the smeared windows. That's a lot of snow. Isaac more or less summed up my observations. I backed off from the crack, retracted my knife and turned to him. How the hell did this tent get all the way out here? How'd they set it all up in the snow? Isaac didn't answer. Instead, he simply stared out, head bobbing in a half-alcohol gaze. "Hey, Dwight?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. He gazed back at me, his eyes squinted as he asked, "This tent looks a lot more beat up than it did a minute ago." "What are you?" I pried my eyes from him and looked around. The lights seemingly dropped 7 hours into the night, and all lights from the tent nearly vanished. Moonlight shone through much clearer, but also much more broken plastic tent walls and various holes in a previously intact tent service. I shoved my rifle's light around and took in the change. I couldn't possibly get more weird, I muttered, and I guess I must have jinxed us. Dwight." I turned back to Isaac, who simply pointed to my left. My eyes followed slowly, moving like a choppy stop-motion picture as I gazed over. A large beam of moonlight, showering through the space inside of the third bunk, laid a hole in which the snowman's mask, as stated earlier, seemingly hung. It wasn't until my mind slowly pieced it together, bit by bit, that dread started to sink in. Then, through the broken moonlight of the plastic window just to my right, I could see a shadow cross and zip right across it. I quickly hurried to my feet, Isaac aiming his pistol dead in front of him. I shouldered my rifle and did the same, seeing as we had no exit flap, that going outside probably wasn't the smartest idea. The snow can oftentimes be a terrifying setting, especially at night. The snowflakes falling creating a wall that limits your vision, the cold biting at your skin and soul. The worst part of it for me is the silence. One might think a quiet environment would allow you to hear an enemy or a threat nearby. But a little bit of science has shown me snowfall stops sound waves, making it hard to hear around you. And right now, the near 3 feet of snow outside the tent and the constant rain of flakes outside made it hard for me and Isaac to hear each other across the small, rectangular tent. "Isaac!" And so when a voice sounded from the far distance, elongated and sounded impersonated, it caught me off guard as it did Isaac himself. And boy, did he look startled. Turning to the tent wall behind him and lowering his gun, Guy went from my hardy partner in crime to looking like a deer in the headlights. Barely any sound could be heard besides Isaac's heavy breathing as his eyes darted. "Mom? Isaac?" The voice sounded again, less strained and more, normal. Isaac quickly walked over to the tent window and pressed his eyes up to it. "Mom, it's me, Isaac." Isaac, back away from the window, I said calmly, wanting to make less noise than he was now. But Isaac continued to look outside. "Mom, that you?" His eyes seemed to zero in on something outside. "Isaac, get away from the window!" I shouted, but he couldn't hear me, too caught up in his own world, too caught up to avoid what happened next. "Isaac!" Cold, hard fear shot up my spine as I heard the voice, distorted and warped, sound out from the tent wall right behind me. My instincts kicked in as my body lurched forward, aiming my rifle at the wall, but before I could even fire a shot, Isaac screamed. He doesn't know what happened, mostly due to the nature of his injury, but Isaac fell back from the tent wall, clutching his eye as blood started to pour from it. Panic set in as I quickly rushed over, yelling at him to let me see it, but Isaac kept his hands pressed up against it. Probably a smart move, but we didn't have time to think about that. "Isaac! Isaac!" A voice that sounded far too deep to be a human's voice, something straight out of a nightmare-fevered dream we had as kids, came from the other end of the tent. My eyes shot over as I saw the hole I'd cut into the fabric start to rip open. Appendages that looked like, from a quick glance that I got, a skeleton, but not really. They started to rip it open. I grabbed the knife that I'd used before and stabbed right into the fabric, cutting through and started to tear right down through it all. All the while, I could hear whatever the fuck was on the other end continue to call out. "Isaac, come home." and as my knife reached the cold, hard dirt ground, I ripped Isaac off the ground and damn near chucked him through the newly created hole, not caring if there was snow, rain, the void, or whatever the fuck else was on the other side. Then I grabbed my rifle, seeing the thing had got on a horrifying arm through as I threw myself into the exit way as well. I felt myself go into a freefall, my eyes shut as I felt cold air hit me, and I fell hard, face first into the concrete floor of the basement. I shook my head as I bolted to my feet, grabbing my rifle and standing to see Isaac had a pea shooter aimed, his blood all over it, his hand and his face, and we were both staring at one of the old paintings. An old painting half covered by one of the burlap sacks. I gazed over at Isaac, who gave me a look that said exactly what I was thinking. What the fuck? It seems to be the universal reaction to things around here. Walking over, I ripped the burlap off and tossed it to the side. The painting was of a clearing in the middle of a snowy pine forest, snow falling heavily from the sky, as well as blanketing the ground around. A small rectangular tent with a campfire outside. Around this point, I was just about done with whatever the fuck was going on, not even knowing how long we'd been down here. I eyed the area around us and saw the generator through the darkness, not 12 meters away. Cover me, I ordered as Isaac held his piece back to me, and I logged in. As I hastily flipped each switch before powering back on the touchpad, I logged in and was ready to power the generator back on. Then I remembered the security camera. Every time a person logs in, the camera captures a still for security purposes to ensure if anyone is tampering with the generator. I quickly tapped on the stored files icon and started scrolling through them. What I saw should have been impossible. The only way to access the generator is by directly going up to the thing, logging in and shutting it off. And so when all of the login images besides my mug showed up, showing an empty room, I shouldn't be surprised of anything at this point, but I was, Jesus Christ, you done yet? I'm tired of smelling my irony ass blood. Isaac chimed in. Now wasn't the best time to start wild speculation, so I simply headed over to the diagnostics and waited as the generator hummed back to life. And all that graced us was a calm noise at first, and then you could hear every damn device in the house power back on as the lights flickered back to life above us. And hell, after tonight, I damn near chuckled out of pure joy. Oh, thank fucking Christ. My celebration was cut off though, as Isaac fired off a few rounds from his piece, and sound waves be damned, guess the area was so small around us, it sounded like a fucking car exploding right next to us. I stumbled forward into the wall. I plugged my ears and gazed back to see whatever Isaac was targeting, and all I saw was the grey concrete wall with 3 new smouldering craters in the side. I shook my head, hoping to alleviate the ringing in my ears as I marched right up to him. Isaac, what the actual fuck? His head shot to look at me, and through the buzzing in my ear canals, all I could hear him say was, What? What the fuck are you shooting at? Why are you yelling? Because you deafened me. Isaac stuck one of his fingers to his ear, trying to, I guess, open it more, somehow, as he said, I saw a woman. What? I asked, less deafened, more surprised. A woman. Black hair, dead-looking skin. He shook his head. She just appeared right as the damn lights came on and, I don't know, disappeared when I fired. I gazed over his shoulder and then remembered the place he'd fired off those rounds corresponded with that little incident I had down here over a month ago. The situation soaked in as we headed upstairs. The security room showed no breaches had occurred, but the backup generator was down near empty. We had been down there for around 3.5 hours. And I told Isaac and John to get their stuff. It's occurred to me the situation here is out of my expertise, and so I'm following up with one of the leads I had in town, a herbalist named Roseanne. who's apparently got a knack for the paranormal. And if I and my small band of cabin dwellers are going to beat what's out there, we're going to need more than guns and equipment. Well, that's better than nothing, to be honest. God willing, this site doesn't give out. I'll update you on how it all goes. Or if not, well, I blame Reddit for my sudden death in the woods. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. As I say, I've been waiting quite a few years to get this one started. Such a wonderful storyline with a captivating setting and the odd chuckle along the way. I hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I. This is a 15-part series, so plenty more to come over the next coming week or so. Of course, a huge thank you to the author, ForestHasEyes, from over on Reddit, No Sleep. Really appreciate you allowing me to narrate this story on the show and finally bring it to all the listeners. And I hope you enjoy this as much as us. Well, guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let me know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. If you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, then please do get in touch with me at the contact email, which is as on screen. contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope everyone's having a great start to the week, whether you're at work or studying, whatever it is that you do. I hope you're enjoying it and you're staying fit and focused. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.